Well, hey, welcome. Welcome to week 2, part 1 of Endless Summer. I just want to welcome you if you're tuning in on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or however you're accessing this. The part 2 of this message is going to be airing Sunday morning live at church180sd.online.church, and we would love to have you join us there. I also want to mention this morning. If what we talk about is helpful to you, there's never been an easier time for you to share the hope of Jesus and to help turn others towards hope than right now. All you have to do is share via Facebook or Instagram or YouTube some of this content, and hopefully it helps someone else to turn toward hope in Jesus. Just want to welcome you whenever you're tuning in, on whatever you're tuning in. We're in a series called Endless Summer, and basically here's why. We said most of the public ministry of Jesus in the early days was done beside the Sea of Galilee. And there's something about summer that is marked by water. Specifically pools, lakes, beaches, whatever. So we said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we called this series Endless Summer? And that is where we are at right now. So I'm really excited about this first part. What I want to do for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to try to keep this pretty short, but what I want to do for the next couple of minutes is kind of look at the story that we're going to talk about this weekend. And I want to look at it from a different perspective that we don't completely have all the time to cover, but I think that you're going to find it to be helpful and beneficial to your life. So the question I kind of want to ask, and the question I want to throw out there is, what would you consider to be your most significant accomplishment in this life? Or let's put it this way, what would you hope to be your most significant accomplishment in this life? Because I think we're gonna drill down on some of that a little bit, but we're gonna be in the story. I don't know your church experience or anything like that, but a lot of people have actually heard this. It's called the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Not sure if you're familiar with it. It's okay, but there's a little bit of backstory to the story, and I think that's important before we look at what we want to look at. But Jesus, within Mark chapter 6, Jesus has just sent out his 12 disciples, and he sent them out to do ministry as he's doing. They're going out and they're healing the sick. They're going out and preaching the good news about Jesus and his coming and the kingdom of God being ushered in. They're going out and doing ministry and leaving many people in awe of what they're up to and the ministry that they're up to, because they're connected to Jesus, and with being connected to Jesus, they're experiencing the power of Jesus and everything that's going on. And at the same time, Herod, the king at the time, Herod, he is starting to grow increasingly worried about the following of Jesus, about the following of John the Baptist, about the following of these people, and he's starting to be suspicious about what's going on and everything. So he calls John the Baptist in, and at this time he beheads John the Baptist, who is the cousin of Jesus at the time. And so the 12 come back to Jesus, and they're wanting to say about all the ministry that they've been up to. The disciples are, everything that they've been able to do in his name, and the power that they've been able to have. But at the same time, they're exhausted from all that ministry. And at the sad news of what has happened to John the Baptist, they kind of just decide, man, that was exhilarating. I don't know if you've been in a season like that, where that was exhilarating, that was fun, that was great, that was cool, or a season where you receive horrific news, like that a dear one has passed away. But they've all this is converged together. And they've experienced this tragedy, they've experienced excitement, exhilaration, and Jesus is like, okay, guys, we got to get away. Okay, let's get in the boat and go to the other side, and let's get some R&R. I don't know about y'all, but when I need some R&R, I need a beach. I mean, ashamed to admit this, but I don't know if you've ever seen those Corona commercials. And sometimes I'm like, man, like when it comes to R&R, I just want my life to look like a Corona commercial, and everything. And just the beautiful lawn chair that's sitting in a pristine ocean environment, looking out to the Tranquility tranquility of the sea. And I picture that in this moment, they're like, y'all, we got to get away and we got to experience one of those tranquil moments and fill our tanks back up. So they go across the sea. But the bad news is this, is because of the ministry that the 12 have done, because of the reputation that Jesus has, they can't get away. There are literally thousands of people on foot running from villages, cities, towns, wherever, trying to keep eyes on Jesus out in this boat in the middle of this lake, in the middle of this sea that's not very big. And they can't make it anywhere without a crowd. And there are people pressing in from everywhere. And we're going to look at this weekend on Sunday when we check it out. But what the scriptures tell us, what Mark chapter 6 tells us, that Jesus looks out at the crowd and he sees them as sheep without a shepherd. We know that the leadership in the country in the day and age was pretty weak. And there was a lot of hope in Jesus. Find Mark doesn't mention this detail, but John does, and this is kind of where we're gonna land in our perspective of the story. But they find a small boy. We don't know how old he is, and he must have been a Boy Scout because the boy was prepared, and he had 5 small loaves of bread, probably like biscuits, and 2 probably dried fish, and that was all the food they could find. And they're like, hey, Jesus, okay, here we go, 15,000 people, we got 5 little biscuits and 2 dried pieces of fish. This is what we got, Jesus. And Jesus says, hey, bring it to me. And what we know is that from these 5 biscuits, from this little boy, and from these dried pieces or dried fish from this little boy, Jesus fed through the disciples. He fed the entire crowd, which is remarkable. And I think we look at it sometimes. We're like, okay, what's the point? Why? Like, what's the point of the miracle? And I think one of the things that Jesus is trying to show is that, okay, I'm ushering in the kingdom of God. I am ushering in, and I'm showing you a bunch of little lessons that over time, in the midst of the story, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't catch that the first time. I didn't catch that the 5th time. I didn't even catch that the 10th time. But the 15th time through the story, I'm starting to realize, oh my goodness, this is what you were trying to teach me. This is what you were trying to show me. This is what you were trying to do through this feeding and through this miracle that is happening at this time. But the thing that I want to focus in on is the fact that Jesus used the disciples to distribute and multiply the food so that it could feed thousands. But Jesus used a small boy and the resources and everything that he had to pull this off. And I just have a few questions as I think about that, because I think about this story, and I'm just like, okay, was the boy even willing? I mean, like, did they just have to like pry it out from his like cold fingers? Like, or, I don't know. Was he willing? I like to think that he was generous. and willing and handed it over. I mean, were his parents there? And they're like, no, buddy, we taught you to be prepared. Like, that's why we sent you to charter school, or that's why we homeschooled you, or that's why we, sent you to whatever. Like, we taught you. That's why we sent you to the Boy Scouts. We taught you to be prepared. And you don't need to give that out to everybody else. Like, what were his parents thinking about this? And we don't really know any of those things, but what we do know is that through one small boy, this insane miracle that reaches 2,000 years later into our stories happened. And I guess my point is, we look at this story and we tend to see ourselves maybe as the boy. We tend to see ourselves maybe as the disciples. We tend to see ourselves maybe as Jesus. But I'm guessing none of us have seen ourselves as the parent of the boy, have we? And that's the perspective I want to look at. I mean, there's a quote, and it bothers me a little bit because of my selfish nature and thinking only about myself. But there's this quote by a pastor that I've mentioned several times, Andy Stanley in Atlanta. And at one point he preached on this and he talked about this, and it's messed with me ever since. But he said this, he said, what if your most significant accomplishment in this life isn't anything you do, but it's who you raise? I'm going to say that again. What if your most significant accomplishment in your lifetime isn't anything that you do, but who you raise? Man, that's powerful. Parents, that is powerful. You don't know what kind of world changers live under your roof right now. And your investment may be critical and may be the most important thing that you ever accomplish. And I know in our selfish nature, we're like, but I want to accomplish something. That's me. But I'm like, man, the reality and the truth is the most important thing I may ever accomplish is right downstairs right now causing a ruckus while I'm trying to film this. But it's not just for parents too, okay? This is why we say at Church 180, turn toward one. We inspire hope. See, your greatest accomplishment, it may not be your kids, but it may be somebody that you invest in that in turn goes and changes the world, or at least significantly changes their world around them. And that could be one of your greatest accomplishments. So I just want to I want to kind of just kick off this message. We're gonna change gears and look at it from a different perspective this weekend. Want to once again invite you to tune in, church180sd.online.church. It'll still be on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that stuff. But that's where our community, a little tribe of people, gets together on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. to see the continuation of this. But I'm going to leave you with this question one more time. What if the most significant thing that you ever accomplish in your life isn't something you do, but someone you raise or someone that you invest in? Turn toward one, Church 180. Turn toward one person in your life and invest in that person, even in this season. Man, love you guys. Hope that I'm able to connect with you on Sunday morning. Like I said, never been easier to share the hope of Jesus, and maybe your share will be the spark or the inspiration that helps somebody else turn toward the hope that we believe only Jesus offers.